I still remember the exact sound my wedding ring made when it hit the kitchen floor. A tiny metallic asterisk clink that echoed louder than the shouting, louder than the insults, louder than the moment I realized the family I married into wasn't just cruel. They were dangerous. And the worst part, the first person who finally helped me fight back was the woman who once watched them destroy me. My mother-in-law. Before we dive in, if you believe that standing up to abuse matters, take a second to like and subscribe. My name is Brittany, and this is the story of how I survived a family that tried to break me, and how we made sure they never hurt anyone again. When I met Daniel, he felt like safety. He was calm, soft-spoken, the kind of man who listened more than he talked. After years of dating loud, arrogant guys, he felt like a warm blanket after a storm. And his family. At first, they seemed perfect. Big house, Sunday dinners, loud laughter, the kind of closeness I'd always secretly wanted growing up in a quiet, distant home. His mother, Elaine, hugged me tightly the first time we met. "Welcome to the family, sweetheart," she said. I remember how genuine it felt. But now, looking back, I realize something chilling. Her smile never reached her eyes. The first crack appeared 3 weeks after the wedding. It was small, almost laughable. We were at dinner, and Daniel's older brother Mark made a joke about my cooking. Brittany's lasagna tastes like it was made by someone who Googled how to cook 10 minutes before dinner. Everyone laughed. I forced a smile. Daniel didn't say a word. I told myself it was harmless. Families tease. That's normal. Right. But it didn't stop. It grew. Like mold spreading quietly under a floorboard. Mark started making constant comments. "You dress like you're still in college. Daniel used to date prettier women. Didn't you grow up poor? That explains a lot." Each time Daniel would just stay silent. Or worse, he'd shrug and say, "That's just how Mark is." Then his sister, Lisa, joined in. She was more subtle, more surgical. She'd compliment me with poison hidden inside. "Oh, that outfit is asterisk so brave for your body type. You're lucky Daniel isn't shallow. Marriage must feel like winning the lottery for you." Her smile always lingered a little too long. Like she was watching for my reaction. Enjoying it. At first I tried to be understanding. I told myself I just needed to prove myself. Win them over. Earn their respect. So I cooked for every gathering. Helped clean their house. Bought thoughtful gifts. Remembered birthdays. But the harder I tried, the worse they treated me. And Daniel, he slowly changed too. It started with little things. He began correcting me in front of them, rolling his eyes when I spoke, ignoring me during family dinners. Then came the first time he snapped. We were alone in the car after one of those dinners. I said quietly, "It hurts when they talk to me like that." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "Maybe if you weren't so sensitive, they wouldn't." That night I cried myself to sleep. But even then, I still didn't see the truth. Because abuse doesn't always start loud. Sometimes it starts like a whisper. A slow erosion of your confidence. A constant message that you're not enough. The real turning point came 6 months later. At a family barbecue. It was hot, the air smelled like charcoal and meat, everyone was drinking. I was inside the kitchen washing dishes when I heard Mark behind me. "You know," he said casually, "Daniel could have done better." I froze. He stepped closer. Too close. "So you better be grateful you're here." His voice lowered. "Women like you don't usually get second chances." I turned, heart pounding. "What does that mean?" He smirked. "It means you're lucky we even tolerate you." Something snapped inside me. I said quietly, "You don't get to talk to me like that." The kitchen went silent. He laughed. Loud. Cruel. Then he shouted so everyone outside could hear. "Oh wow, the charity case has an opinion." People came rushing in. Lisa. Daniel. Elaine. Everyone staring. Mark pointed at me. "She thinks she deserves respect." And then Daniel said the words that shattered something inside me forever. "Brittany, just apologize." I remember the exact physical feeling in that moment. Like the floor vanished under my feet. Like my lungs forgot how to breathe. I looked at him. Hopping. Praying. Begging silently for him to defend me. He didn't. Not even once. That night I realized something terrifying. I hadn't married into a family. I had married into a system. A hierarchy built on humiliation. And I was at the bottom. But the worst moment was yet to come. Because 2 months later, Daniel did something that proved I wasn't just unwanted. I was trapped. And someone in that house had known all along. 2 months after that barbecue, the first time Daniel truly scared me, it wasn't because he yelled. It was because of how calm he was. It started with money. At first I didn't even notice the shift. After we married, we opened a joint account. I trusted him, why wouldn't I? He handled the bills. I handled groceries and day-to-day expenses. Normal. Or so I thought. Until one morning, my debit card declined at a grocery store. I still remember the heat crawling up my neck as the cashier said, "Ma'am, it says insufficient funds." I laughed awkwardly. That's impossible. But it was. When I got home, Daniel was sitting at the dining table scrolling on his phone. "Hey," I said carefully, "did something happen with the account?" He didn't even look up. "I moved some money." "How much?" "All of it." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean all of it?" Finally he looked at me. His eyes were cold. Detached. "You spend too much. I'm managing the finances now." The room felt smaller. Like the walls had shifted closer. You didn't tell me," I whispered. "I'm telling you now." His voice was flat. Final. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying everything. Mark's insults. Lisa's smirks. Daniel's silence. And now this. A slow realization crept in. This wasn't just family cruelty. This was control. Over the next weeks, the restrictions tightened. I had to ask before spending money. He monitored my phones. He criticized what I wore. He began telling me which friends were bad influences. And gradually, I stopped seeing them. But the worst part wasn't the rules. It was how normal everyone in his family treated it. One Sunday during dinner, Lisa casually asked, "So Daniel's keeping you on a budget now?" I felt my cheeks burn. "Yes," I said quietly. She smiled approvingly. "Good. Women need structure." Mark laughed. "Otherwise they forget who's in charge." And then Elaine spoke. Calm. Measured. Her voice like a blade wrapped in silk. "That's how a marriage stays strong." I looked at her in shock. Because for a split second, I saw something in her eyes. Not agreement. Not approval. Something else. Something that looked like pain. That moment haunted me. Because it didn't match the role she played. The obedient matriarch. The quiet supporter of her sons. But every now and then, I'd catch her staring at me when the others weren't looking. And in her eyes, there was guilt. The situation escalated slowly. Like water rising around your ankles before you realize you're drowning. Daniel began criticizing everything. My cooking. My voice. My job. Even how I laughed. You sound annoying when you laugh like that. So I stopped laughing. Then came the night, everything crossed into something darker. It was raining. A heavy, relentless storm. I had accidentally forgotten to pay a small utility bill because Daniel had locked me out of the banking apps. When he found out, he didn't yell. He stood very still, which somehow felt worse. I trusted you with one responsibility, he said quietly. I'm sorry, I whispered. He walked closer. Too close. His presence felt suffocating. Then he grabbed my wrist. Hard. Not enough to bruise immediately, but enough to hurt. Enough to send a shock of fear through my entire body. Do not make me regret marrying you. That was the moment I realized something horrifying. I wasn't safe. Not emotionally. Not financially. And now, not physically. I started planning to leave. Quietly. Secretly. I hid small amounts of cash from grocery money. I packed a tiny emergency bag. I began researching shelters at night while Daniel slept. My heart would race every time I heard him shift in bed. But the problem with abusive families is this. They don't just control your life. They control your perception of reality. Every time I thought about leaving, his voice echoed in my mind. You have nowhere to go. No one will believe you. You'll lose everything. And worst of all, you're nothing without this family. One evening, after another suffocating dinner, I finally broke down. I was in the kitchen alone, trying to steady my breathing, trying not to cry. That's when Elaine walked in. She didn't speak at first. She just stood beside me at the sink, silently rinsing a glass. Then she said something that made my heart stop. You should leave. I turned so fast I nearly dropped the plate. What? Her hands trembled slightly. You think I don't see what's happening? Her voice cracked. They did the same thing to me. The room went completely still. The rain outside tapped against the window like fingers. My mind struggled to process her words. You mean Daniel's father? She nodded slowly. For 30 years. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. I stayed because I thought it was my duty. She looked at me then. Really looked. And for the first time I saw not a distant mother-in-law, but a woman who had been broken the same way I was. You still have time, she whispered. Run before they crush you completely. My heart pounded, because suddenly everything made sense. Her silence, her sadness, the guilt in her eyes. She hadn't been agreeing with them. She had been surviving them. But before I could respond, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Daniel's voice called sharply. Mom's Brittany, where are you? Elaine's expression changed instantly. Her face became calm again, controlled, like a mask snapping back into place. She leaned closer and whispered one final sentence. I can't escape anymore, but you still can. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Leaving wasn't going to be simple, because this family didn't just rely on fear. They relied on secrets, power, and control far deeper than I had imagined. And what I discovered a week later proved just how dangerous they really were. A week after Elaine told me to run, I discovered why she had whispered instead of spoken freely. Because leaving this family wasn't just difficult. It was dangerous. The discovery happened by accident. Or maybe fate. Daniel had left his laptop open on the dining table while he took a call outside. He almost never did that. He was obsessive about privacy. But that day the screen was still glowing. An email was opened. At first I wasn't trying to snoop. I just glanced. Then I saw my name, and everything inside me went cold. The subject line read, *Financial Dependency Progress Update. My heart started pounding so loudly, it felt like it echoed in my ears. I read it, every word, and each sentence felt like a knife slicing through my chest. It was from Mark to Daniel, with Lisa CC'd. It read, once Brittany is fully financially reliant, it will be easier to maintain control. Mom took longer to break because she had outside support. Don't make that mistake. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled. But the worst part was still below. Another line. Casual. Cruel. Like they were discussing a business strategy. Isolation phase seems successful. She has reduced contact with friends and family. Keep reinforcing her lack of independence. My stomach churned violently. It wasn't random cruelty. It wasn't personality. It was deliberate. Planned. Systematic. They had done this before. To Elaine. And now, they were doing it to me. I quickly snapped photos of the screen with my phone before I heard Daniel's footsteps returning. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the device. When he walked in, I was standing at the sink pretending to rinse a mug. My heart was racing so hard I thought he could hear it. But he didn't notice. He never imagined I would fight back. Because in his mind, I was already broken. That night I couldn't sleep. My entire body buzzed with adrenaline, fear, and something else. Something new. Something that felt unfamiliar after months of being crushed. Anger. Real, burning anger. I kept rereading the photos. Zooming in. Seeing how casually they talked about controlling me like I was a project. Not a person. And suddenly, Elaine's words echoed in my mind. They did the same thing to me. That was when I realized something important. This wasn't just about escaping. If I left quietly, they would do it again. To someone else. Another woman would walk into that family thinking she'd found love. And they would break her too. Just like they broke Elaine. Just like they tried to break me. For the first time since my wedding day, I didn't want to run. I wanted to stop them. Permanently. But I couldn't do it alone. And there was only one person who truly understood how this family operated. Elaine. I approached her carefully a few days later. We were alone in the garden. She was trimming roses. Her hands moved with quiet precision. But I could see the tension in her shoulders. Like she was always waiting for something bad to happen. I whispered, I know. Her hands froze. Slowly she looked up. Her eyes searched mine. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone. Showed her the email. The moment she read it, her face went pale. Her lips trembled. For a second she looked like she might collapse. Then something changed in her expression. A shift. Subtle, but powerful. The fear didn't disappear. But it was replaced by something else. Something I had never seen in her before. Fury. Her voice shook when she spoke. They've been doing this for decades. Tears filled her eyes, but they didn't fall. They learned it from their father. My chest tightened. How many women? She swallowed hard. Too many. A heavy silence settled between us. Then she said something that changed everything. I stayed because I thought I had no power. Her eyes locked onto mine. But you. Her voice steadied. You still do. That was the moment our alliance began. 2 women. One who had survived. One who refused to be broken. Both ready to end the cycle. The planning started slowly. Quietly. Like building a secret rebellion. Elaine knew every weakness in that family. Every hidden skeleton. Every financial secret. Every lie they told to maintain their image. And there were many. She revealed something shocking. Daniel and Mark's business wasn't clean. They manipulated contracts, exploited legal loopholes, coerced employees, and most importantly, they kept detailed written records because they believed they were untouchable. They think no one will ever expose them, Elaine said, because they think we're too afraid. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes burned with determination. They're wrong. Over the next weeks we gathered evidence. Emails, financial records, audio recordings. I secretly recorded conversations during family dinners. The insults, the controlling language, even subtle threats. Every piece added to a growing mountain of proof. It wasn't easy. Every moment felt like walking a tightrope over fire. If they found out, I didn't know what they would do. But fear slowly transformed into something stronger. Purpose. One night, as we reviewed documents together, Elaine said something quietly. I used to pray someone would save me. She looked at me. Her voice cracked. But now I realize we can save ourselves. That was when the final plan took shape. We wouldn't just escape. We would expose everything. Publicly, legally, irreversibly. But the risk was enormous. Because the moment they realized what we were doing, they would fight back. Hard. And Daniel was already starting to notice something was different. He had begun watching me more closely, asking more questions, his tone growing colder, suspicious. One night he grabbed my chin sharply and forced me to look at him. You've been acting strange. His voice was low. Dangerous. What are you hiding? My heart pounded violently, but I forced a calm expression. Nothing. He stared at me for a long time, then whispered something that sent a chill down my spine. You belong to this family now. But inside, for the first time, I knew that wasn't true anymore, because the trap they built for me was about to become their own. And the day we finally executed our plan was the day their perfect image shattered forever. The day everything fell apart for them, started like any other Sunday. Quiet, controlled, deceptively normal. The dining table was set with Elaine's usual precision. White plates, crystal glasses, the smell of roasted chicken drifting through the house. Daniel sat at the head of the table, scrolling his phone. Mark poured himself wine like he owned the world. Lisa chatted about a friend's wedding, her voice dripping with judgment as always. And me, I sat silently, watching, listening, counting down the minutes, because this was the last time they would ever sit at that table thinking they were untouchable. My heart was racing so hard I could feel it in my throat. But I didn't look nervous. I had practiced this moment for weeks. Every breath, every expression, every word. Elaine entered the dining room last. She looked calm, almost serene. But when our eyes met for a split second, I saw it. Steel. After decades of quiet suffering, she was finally ready. Dinner began normally. Small talk, forced laughter, the usual passive-aggressive comments. Lisa glanced at my plate and smirked. Still watching your portions, that's good, discipline is important. Mark chuckled. Especially when you marry above your level. Daniel didn't laugh. He just gave a faint, approving nod. Like cruelty was expected. Routine. Acceptable. And that was when Elaine did something she had never done in 30 years. She interrupted. Her voice was calm, but firm. Enough. The room went silent instantly. Mark blinked. Lisa frowned. Daniel looked confused. Because Elaine had never contradicted them before. Not once. She placed her fork down carefully, then said something that made their expressions shift from irritation to unease. I'm tired of pretending this family is respectable. Mark laughed loudly. Mom, what are you talking about? Elaine didn't look at him. Her gaze moved slowly across each of them. You built your lives on control, on fear, on humiliation. Her voice trembled slightly. But it didn't break. I know, because you learned it from your father. Daniel's face darkened. That's enough. But Elaine kept speaking. And then, she delivered the line that changed everything. And now, everyone else is about to know too. Mark's smile disappeared. What does that mean? That was my cue. My hands shook slightly as I pulled out my phone. Then I pressed play. Daniel's recorded voice filled the room. Cold. Cruel. Undeniable. You have nowhere to go. You belong to this family now. The recording continued. Mark's voice next. Mocking. We need her financially dependent first. Then Lisa. Soft. Calculated. She's already isolated. It's working. The color drained from their faces. They looked at each other in shock. Then at me. Then at Elaine. Daniel stood up abruptly. You recorded us. His voice exploded with rage. But this time, I didn't flinch. I didn't shrink. I didn't look down. I met his eyes calmly. Yes. Silence filled the room like a suffocating fog. Then I said the words I had dreamed of for months. And that's only a small part of what authorities have now. The shift in their expressions was instant. Rage turned into fear. Real fear. The kind that tightens jaws and drains blood from faces. Mark scoffed nervously. You're bluffing. Elaine spoke again. Quietly. No. She slid a thick folder onto the table. Inside were copies of financial documents. Emails. Contracts. Evidence of fraud. Coercion. Illegal practices. Years of hidden crimes. Lisa's hands started shaking. Daniel's breathing became shallow. Mark's face turned ghostly pale. Because they finally understood something. They weren't in control anymore. And right then, there was a knock at the front door. 3 firm, unmistakable knocks. No one moved. No one spoke. The air felt frozen. Heavy, like time itself had stopped. Then Daniel whispered hoarsely, What did you do? I stood slowly. My legs felt steady. Strong. For the first time since I married him, I felt powerful. I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped aside. 2 investigators stood there, along with a police officer. Their expressions were professional, serious, final. Behind me, I heard Mark curse under his breath. Lisa started crying. Daniel just stood there, completely still, like his entire world had just collapsed. Because it had. The investigation that followed destroyed everything they built. Their business was shut down, their finances frozen, their reputation shattered, every secret exposed publicly. Friends disappeared, allies vanished, even distant relatives cut contact, because the truth was finally undeniable. And Daniel, he tried to contact me dozens of times after, begging, threatening, apologizing, blaming. But I never responded. Because I was done listening. The last time I saw him was in court. He looked smaller, weaker, not powerful, not intimidating, just ordinary. And when he looked at me, there was no control left in his eyes, only regret. Elaine and I sat side by side that day. Two survivors, two women who refused to stay silent. When the verdict was read, she squeezed my hand tightly. Her fingers trembled, but her voice was steady when she whispered, "It's over." And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real peace. I didn't just escape that family. I helped end a cycle that had lasted generations. A cycle of control, of fear, of women being told they were powerless. Elaine started rebuilding her life too. She moved out, started therapy, joined support groups. For the first time in decades, she learned what freedom felt like. And watching her rediscover herself was one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed. As for me, I learned something that still stays with me. Abusers don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like families, like husbands, like people who smile at dinner tables. But here's the truth they never want you to know. Their power only exists while you stay silent. The moment you speak, the moment you document, the moment you refuse to accept their version of reality, their entire system begins to crumble. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it. You never know who might need to hear that they're not alone, and that standing up, even when it feels impossible, can change everything. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't hurting your abusers. It's exposing them. And finally, walking away free.